Okay, you're welcome, Mark. So let's get to work. Happy Sunday. Hope you enjoy your Sunday. You're welcome to class. This is PED, Primary Education for Food 130. Primary Education 130. That is PED 130. And the course is Introduction to Social Studies. I mean, these are courses you are meant to get A1 in them. Get your A on solo because they are just interesting topics that you can relate to. So, in order to achieve the introduction to social studies, we will study that concept under several modules and units. But the one that we will start with is Module 1, where we'll talk about foundations of social studies. Where did they stand from? The foundations of social studies. And to achieve that knowledge, we'll be doing that under some units. First unit will tell us the meaning of social studies. Like I like to always remind you that when it comes to anything, any concept, or learning something new, it's always important to know the meaning of that thing first before you start observing the thing, before you start describing or saying any other thing about the thing. It's only good that your audience understands the meaning of that concept first. So that is why we use it appears that almost all your material start with the meaning of that concept you want to talk about. So meaning of social studies, then we'll talk about historical background of social studies, some kind of history. In Unit 3, we'll talk about the philosophical background of social studies in Nigeria. And of course, Unit 4, social studies and other disciplines. How are they interrelated? And then finally, we will talk about values of learning social studies. This unit 5 is very important to you because you might be asking yourself, or you may be asking yourself, why do I need to study social studies? What's the importance? What values does it add to me? You will learn that in unit 5. So without wasting time, let's go to unit 1, the meaning of social studies. Now, as a form of introduction to this unit, uh, effective teaching and learning. Oh, I think this is too big. I will need to bring it down a bit. Effective, wow, this, okay. Effective teaching and learning of social studies at any level demand a detailed but not lopsided understanding of the meaning of the subject in such a way that the bias of training does not influence the way a teacher ends up handling the subject in class. In this unit, which happens to be your first contact with this course material, it is expected that you will be familiarized with the definitions of the subject as supported by contemporary practitioners of the subject. Now, this is introduction, the various confusions that have characterized the definitions of the subject based on the professional biases of teachers handling the subject in our schools will be cleared. This will therefore give you the chance of getting acquainted with the details of what an ideal definition of social studies should be. This introduction is trying to create a picture and also trying to clear the air. Trying to tell you that your focus in this unit is to understand the true meaning of social studies, and to tell you that there are some misconceptions, some false meaning or definitions that have been attributed based on biases that some teachers believe to be the meaning of social studies, which is not. But when you get the correct definition from this place, it helps you to handle it properly when you start teaching the subject social study in school as a teacher. So At the end of this unit, what am I expected to know? What are you expected to know? What is the focus of this unit? What does this unit want you to know? Okay, the font is small. Is the way they the way they wrote this material is somehow. If you zoom it a bit now, everything clears again. Okay, so by the end of this lesson or this unit, we should be able to do the following. So these are checkpoints that we need to visit time to time, go up, come back, and see if we have truly achieved that. Well, not so much. They just want us to know two things by the time we are done with this unit under definition or meaning of social studies. One, we should be able to identify definitions that are not compatible with the nature and focus of social studies. Those are misconceptions. You should be able to know the ones that are misconceptions, the ones that most teachers put in their head as a definition, which is wrong. And then you should be able to give the correct definitions. It's very simple. So you are trying to see two things now. Which definition of social study is wrong? Which one is right? That is what the focus of this unit is all about. So now, let's say what social study is not. Like you've learned from the learning outcomes that you will know what social study is not and what social study is. Let's look at what it is not as the first thing we'll be talking about today. Now, the circumstances surrounding the introduction of the subject, social studies, into Nigeria can be identified as one major factor that has influenced the way the subject has been variedly defined in the past years. So, here is the first picture. Why do we have wrong definitions? Wrong definitions arises from the nature of events that brought in the introduction, excuse me, the introduction of the social studies subject into Nigeria. There are some things that happened then when they brought it, the circumstances that were invoked then. So this is a kind of foundational problem. The reason why we're having wrong definitions of social study dates back to the beginning when they brought the subject into Nigeria. So the early practitioners of the subject allowed their professional background and preparation to influence what they perceived and thought as social studies, according to Lawal and Oyaleye in 2003. In support of this view, remarked that the definitions, nature and scope of the subject became so restricted to the confinement of a single discipline purview of the social. We're just trying to look at why should there be a subject that people will give wrong definition? Why should there be subjects that people will give wrong definition? So we have looked at several reasons. If you have been following, one of the reasons that we are able to identify is that the circumstances that surround the introduction of that subject into Nigeria or to Nigeria is one major factor that is the cause of having a wrong definition of the subject. And also, the second one, which was stated clearly here, is that people that practice social study in the early stage or in the early days when it just arrived in Nigeria, they 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 are kind of biased. They were employing their, what do we call it? They employ their own background, like the way I was brought up now. Maybe I'm from the Yoruba side or the Hausa side. So my own background now, the way we do things in my place. So I've now brought it into the social study idea. So it's now making me to have some kind of short-sightedness in defining or embracing the subject. So that is one major issue that people of those category faced. To some of the practitioners in this category, social studies was defined as amalgamation of knowledge of the arts and social sciences. One of the wrong definition, amalgamation of knowledge of the arts and social sciences. In terms of history, geography, political science, and sociology. While according to Corte in 1984, Corte remarks that the protagonist of this view and indivisible, and that it is only for convenience that it has been divided to subject component, or sorry, compartment. So according to, that is a very wrong thing. How do you believe that knowledge is just one thing, indivisible? It's not possible. We have several knowledge we have in the world. So these people said that knowledge is just one thing that you can't even divide. So the reason why we're now having different fields like social science, science, history, whatever, is because we want to make it convenient for ourselves. That is why we now broke down or divided knowledge. But to them originally, knowledge is indivisible. Well, I think maybe they have a point, but that point is not valid. So curriculum labeled on this view only ended up departmentalizing knowledge by selecting assortment of topics from the social sciences. This can only compel the teachers holding this view to limit their selection of topics related to their discipline, with emphasis on such topics at the neglect of other topics, unless other specialists can be found to handle other aspects of the curriculum. Do you know what they are trying to say in a clearer picture? The people of those days, when this controversy was actually dominant, they believed that knowledge is one, and then just for us to have convenience, we have separated knowledge. To them, knowledge is originally indivisible, but now it has been divided for convenience. So what they usually do then is that, based on their own background or belief orientation, they believe that if I am teaching social studies, if there should be any mention of mathematics, I shouldn't be able to do anything on mathematics. So we need to go and look for another person to come and teach mathematics. Or if I'm teaching English, I shouldn't know anything about agriculture. So when I see anything inside that English that looks like agriculture, I need to go and call another person that is doing agriculture to come and teach that part of the limited knowledge. That is what we're trying to say here. They've kind of restricted knowledge to only particular aspect of their own learning. So the part that doesn't concern them, this part is not part of my own field. We are not doing it in social studies, so I should not know it. It's none of my business. That is very wrong, especially in this world that knowledge is everywhere. You can't live like that by saying because you studied engineering, so when they mention anything about emotional balance or anything, you have zero knowledge on it. That is a very wrong thing. So that is what we are saying. That is the meaning of that part of the material. Why are we having blank spaces? So some other practitioners of the subject have equally defined social studies as the study of relationship between man and his environment. Well, the first definition we got was that it is the amalgamation of knowledge, the knowledge of art and social sciences. Don't forget, according to the first set of people, they said that social studies is the amalgamation of knowledge, art, and social sciences. We are talking of what social study is not, but people defines it as. So those are kind of misconceptions. The second misconception or definition that we will look at is the one that says that social studies is the study of relationship between man and his environment. Well, as an adjunct, they see it it is sorry they see it sees how what kind of expression is this? I think something is wrong there. They see it as how man, it is as they want to put there, not is. They see it as how man influences the environment and how the environment influences man. Still, this same man, Cote now one in his own observation of this their own definition, the people that say social study is the study of man and his environment, that is the relationship between man and his environment. So Cote also observed something in that same 1984. It says that this view has strong geographical and sociological connotations. These standpoints present the false notion that social study has nothing new to offer. So when Cote in 1984 studied this their own definition, he found out that it is narrow to the sense that they are trying to confine the definition of social study to only something that is already in existence, not something that can evolve. Nothing new will be experienced in social study, and that course is not that. That subject is not that. So their definition is very limited. By presenting social studies in this compartment, it attempts to negate the importance attached to the attainment of unity of knowledge, which is one of the concerns of social study, the unity of knowledge. Whereas if we define it as the study of man and his environment, that brings us to a knowledge that is only concerned about geography. So social study would have been only a subject of geography. That is what they are trying to say. That's another misconception. That is the second one. The first one says it is amalgamation of the knowledge of art and social sciences. The second one says the study of man and his physical environment, the relationship between the man and the physical environment. Now, teachers who had this perception of the subject's definition, they taught social studies purely for knowledge acquisition, just for the student to know. That is the only thing those type of teachers are teaching social studies from. And if you look at the word social and social study, it should offer more than that. It should offer more than the student just knowing that social study is this, social study is that. It's a practical subject. This approach to the definition of the subject does not adequately emphasize the affective domain of learning. As you know, we have the effective, the affective, as it merely focuses on the cognitive orientation of the subject. What they're trying to say is that that one has only captured knowledge. It doesn't cover the other part of the subject, like the emotional and the relationship aspect of it. So, what do we look at now? We are still under what social study is not. So it focuses on the cognitive, that means the brain aspect. This pupil knows social studies so well, only in the context of asking questions and answering, but it's not showing in the behavior. Though none of these definitions can be acceptable definition of social studies, each contains some element which an ideal definition of the of the subject should contain. What they are saying is that it's not like these definitions we've mentioned before or earlier. It's not like they are totally wrong. It's just that they are lacking. They are too restricted. They are too narrow. So they are lacking in themselves. There are things that social study cover more than what they presented. So again, one cannot deny that social studies deals with facts derived from interpersonal and man-land relationship. But it is wrong to assume that the focus or focuses or that it focuses on a body of precise memorable facts about man and the environment. This is because social study is not a discipline in which academic selfishness is exhibited or promoted. That is a discipline in which a teacher seizes opportunity to emphasize his or her own area of specialization at the expense of the real content of the subject. No compartmentalization of knowledge. No compartmentalization of knowledge. That means dividing knowledge into segments. No, this one belongs to science. This one belongs to this part of it belongs to mathematics. This part of it belongs to geography. That is not in social study. There must be unity of knowledge in social study. So far, so good. You have seen what social study is not based on popular opinion. Those who say it is a compartmentalization of the amalgamation rather. Those who say the amalgamation of knowledge, they are wrong. That sorry, let's not say they are wrong. They are not totally correct. Those who say that social study is the study of man and his physical environment and the relationship between them, they are right to some sense, to some degree, but they are not totally correct. So, what is social study? Now that we know what social study is not, okay, let me give you an icebreaker so that it doesn't look like I'm the only one talking. I want you to give two definitions or wrongly perceived definition of social science. Give two definitions that social science, what am I saying? Social studies, rather. Sorry, me and science. Two definitions that social studies is not based on the material. Yes, let's have them from you. Two definitions that is either they are lacking or they are not even correct about social study. So that will move us to the main thing. What is social study? We have seen what social study is not. Now, what social studies is the next thing we are concerned about. And this is where we get the real definition. So in this sense now, we would have been able to differentiate between the meaning and then the wrong notion that people have about it. What's wrong with it? Is this? I hope you are able to see my screen though, because this is my network. I'm not sure. Okay, this is where we are meant to. What is social studies or what social study is? Okay, social studies is the study of man and his environment. Yes, that is not totally correct. Excuse me. That is definitely not totally correct. Then amalgamation of art and social science. Thank you, ma. You've been following 100%. So, what social studies is? Notable scholars have defined social studies in ways that confirm the subject as a value-laden discipline. Value-laden discipline. Value-laden discipline. It has values to offer, not just knowledge of environment, not just a narrow knowledge, not just a compartmentalization of knowledge, but it has values to imbibe into the learners. I have a question there. For instance, according to Frost and Rowland in 1969, Frost defined the subject as essentially studies of human relationship, like human to human, human to institutions, human to physical environment, and human to value systems. Now, this gives a very deep meaning. It covers a lot. It is a study of the relationship between humans, or let's say human relationship. And you know that when you say human relationship, you as a human, you have several things you are relating to or relating with. You relate with your place of work. You relate to your family, one-on-one relationship with your children and your husband. You relate to your environment, things that are happening around you, the trees you have there, you know, the work part, the weather, the atmosphere. So you relate to so many things as a human. So when we are saying human relationship, human relationship is not narrow to man relationship alone, like you and your fellow human. It also concern how you relate to other things around you, like the atmosphere that is around you, the environment in which you live in, how you relate with it. Do you leave your environment bushy? Do you clear it? Do you make it neat? Do you leave everywhere unkept? Or do you so you see all those relationships you have with everything, including institutions like your place of work, like your school, like your if you belong to maybe all these what do they call them, cooperative societies. How do you relate to them? So your relationship with almost everything you can find yourself relating to is the concern of social studies. Is the concern of social studies. Okay, you said value leading uh, discipline. Uh, well, that is actually leading they use. That means it carries the weight of discipline. Laden with the weight, saddled. It is value laden uh, discipline. So we've seen the definition by Frost and Roland, a subject that studies human relationship, like the human to human relationship, human to institutions relationship, and human to the physical environment, and also human to value systems. This implies that the subject is one that encourages attention to be given to the process of living and working together, using of the environment to meet basic human needs, customs, institutions, values, and life situations, cultural heritage, and its dynamic, ongoing characteristics. If you see this definition now, you see that social study covers every part of the human life, every part of the human relationship life, everything the human relate with. That is the concern of social study. I will take the definition by Frost and Roland again, just for it to sink better into our mind. They defined the subject social study as essentially studies of human relationship. That is the main thing you should remember. It is essentially the study of human relationship. But what are the things human relate with? Human to human relationship, human to institutional relationship, human to physical environment relationship, and human to value systems relationship. So that is what Frost and Roland said in 1969. So the man that has been criticizing all the other definitions before now, when we're talking about what social study is not, this man Cotte in 1984, who has been a critic to all those wrong definitions that have been given. Now let's hear his own definition. Let's hear what he says about social study. In his own definition of social studies, he describes the subject. When we say subject here, we're talking about social study as that equips the youth with tools necessary to solving personal and community related problems. Wonderful. No wonder he was criticizing the fact that social study is an amalgamation of art and social science, or the fact that it is the study of human and its environment. Look at his definition. Awesome one. A study that equips the youth with tools necessary personal and community problems, relationship problem relate with this is one definition also captures Frost and in a logical way. He presented it in a more lively way. It equips the youth. So when you see the definition that equips the youth with tools, they are talking about Cotte 4. Well, or the description of its own definition. We've seen the definition now, we'll describe it, but I've given you an icebreaker there. Now let's describe the definition by culture. Thus, it defined social studies will not mainly aim at giving out knowledge, but it will equally emphasize on inculcating certain distillate knowledge which will assist humans in acquiring the tools necessary for life. Such tools are knowledge, values, attitudes, and skills. The tools that Cote in 1989 or in 1984 rather mentioned are things like knowledge, values, attitude, and skills. So when you see somebody having issues with attitude in this generation, it's probably they were not groomed well in social studies, or they did not take social studies serious when they were in the primary and secondary level. So social tools are knowledge, values, attitudes, and skills. These tools are expected to assist the learner in solving both personal and community related problems. When you have good attitude, you'll be able to relate well with people of your community, and your skills will help you to solve personal problems. The values you have will make you to be relevant in the community, and the knowledge you have will help you both personally and in the community relationship. That is why those tools are needed to equip the youth in solving both personal and community related problems. Now, the National Council for Social Studies in the United States of America has officially defined the subject as. Now, we want to talk about another definition. Don't forget, we've talked about the definition by Roland, Frost and Roland, 1969. We've talked about the definition by Cote in 1984. Now, here is another definition from America, the National Council for Social Studies in the United States of America. Here is their definition. So let's look at their own definition. Okay, let me check the icebreaker before we go into that. You've not answered the icebreaker yet. Cote in 1984, in his own definition of social studies, described the subject as a what? The form of a method, essentially equipping the youth with tools necessary for solving personal and community related problems. That is what he said. That is what he said. Okay, the Americans, what did they say about social studies? An integrated study of the social sciences and humanities to promote civic competence and help young people develop the ability to make informed and reasoned decisions as citizens of culturally diverse democratic society in an interdependent world. This definition is too bulky. They are trying to leave no stone unturned. That is why they are trying to kind of cover everything that is likely to cover in their definition. By so doing, they made it too bulky. An integrated study of the social sciences and humanities. Why? To promote civic competence and help young people develop the ability to make informed and reasoned decisions as citizens of culturally diverse democratic society in an interdependent world. Now, according to this definition, we can say that it implies that the goal of social studies purely revolves around citizenship education and education for cultural integration and sustainable living. So when you take a critical look at this definition of the National Council for Social Studies in the United States of America, you find out that they are trying to talk about how to groom citizens to behave well, especially in a world that is interdependent. So if you are to summarize their own definition, will come up with the fact that they are trying to see social study as something that is concerned purely with citizenship education, educating the citizens, and also cultural integration for sustainable living. Social studies can therefore be described as a discipline aimed to modify or change the learner's behaviors. This is where you see now that it is no longer just giving the learners knowledge for them to know social study is study of blah, 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 blah. No, it's a behavioral integrator. It changes, it provides a switch in behavior. It cultures the pupils, it cultures your learners, the way they should behave in the society, the way they should act in situations, the way no. So that is the work of social study. So this definition is very important. Let's take it carefully. Social studies can therefore be described as a discipline which attempts to modify or change learners' behaviors in the directions of acceptable values and attitude through a process of studying human beings' relationship with the environment and with the desire to provide solutions to various complementing problems in order to ensure their survival, having equipped with the necessary tools, having been equipped with the necessary tools such as values, attitudes, skills, and knowledge. That is according to Lawal in 1993. That is quite a long one, but one thing you should remember about the definition of Lawal is that social study is a discipline that attempt to modify or change the behaviors of the learner. Changing the behavior of the learner is what Lawal sees social study as. So when you as a teacher knows that already, you know what you are trying to do when you want to teach social study. It is no longer you giving the children brain work for them to know. It is not just what is it called? It's not just a brain work that this student is intelligent. You got A1 in social study, whereas that child don't know how to manage anger. That child don't know how to behave, how to talk to his peers, how to talk to elders, how to behave in society. Then the teacher failed in that field, in that subject, because the aim of the subject is to bring about a shift in behavior of the learner towards positivity. So that is the idea. So we already know what social study is now and what social study is not. I believe by now you already have a proper understanding of the term social study based on the different definitions we've gotten from different people, from Frost and Roland in 1969, from Cotte in 1984, from American, date or year was not given there, and from Lawal in 1993. So we've seen different definitions, and the summary of it all is that we can see that while some of them said social study is the study of relationship of man and his environment, relationship of human, like relationship with human to human, human to institutions, human to value system, and so on. And some of them says it is the education of citizenship and integrating cultural integration for sustainable living. And some of them say it is a change in human behavior. It's a change in the learner. It's an attempt to change the learner's behavior towards positive or positivity. Now, the whole idea is not trying to tell you that this is a more behavioral building course, or sorry, subject, rather than a knowledge-based subject. So all the definitions that were given during the time we were talking about wrong definitions, those ones were only narrowed. They are only based to having knowledge, putting something in the head of the learner about social study. rather than grooming the learner. So that is the difference. That is what you should know now. That when you want to take or handle the subject social study, it is a total package of human life, not just knowledge about some things. No, a total package. You must see the behavioral change. You know, there are some of these things that the knowledge has helped us to do. You know, when you teach about human to human relationship now, for instance, you tell your pupils, like when you see an elder, you greet them. That's how to relate to an elder. When an elder is talking, you keep quiet, you allow them to finish before you answer when only when they ask you a question. So when the child goes home after that class and start practicing that thing, maybe the child used to shout on the parent before and say, leave me alone, Joe, leave me alone, Joe. But since after that class, because now the idea is not just to tell the child, the idea is to groom the child to have a shift in behavior. So once the child goes home and the parents start noticing the change, the parent too will start wondering. They may even call the school that, "Ah, thank you, we are seeing your hand in the life of our child o." What are they saying? You are effecting social study properly. A change is occurring towards positivity. So as a social subject, it is more interdisciplinary, more concerned with skills development, and more normative. It is a field of study in which content and purpose focus on relationships. It provides knowledge, attitude, values, and skills that enable people understand better their physical and human environment in order to act or behave as responsible citizens. Its primary purpose is to help young people develop the ability to make informed and reasoned decisions for the public good as citizens of a culturally diverse democratic society in an interdependent world. That last part of it, of this place, is just referring to the American definition of social studies. So they gave us self-assessment. Give any two definitions of social studies which you are convinced will be unacceptable to the contemporary practitioners of the subject, which means two definitions which social study is not. You already know that. I've asked you already during the icebreaker. The second one is now to give what social study is from your own point of view. Okay, let's do that one. What is social study from your own point of view? What is social study from your own point of view? Now you've learned about Frost and Roland. You've learned about Cote. You've learned about the Americans and about Lawal. What is your own view? What will you say social study is? If you are to be asked now to define social study, we're about ending the class. Modify or change the behavior in pupil. Thank you. So that is your own perspective and it's acceptable. Now, the conclusion to this unit, the foregoing reveals that attempt at defining social studies can be fraught with misconceptions and past professional biases. However, the correct definition of social studies will basically present it as a discipline that deals with man's problem of survival. The focus of the definition should nevertheless not be one that focuses on the problem per se, but on how to prepare man to confront such problems. Any definition of the subject that cannot make this happen should be regarded as one of those that depict what social studies is not. The main idea now is that whenever you want to define social study in an acceptable way, it must capture how man can solve the problem that are around him in the society. So if it doesn't capture that, your definition will be unacceptable. That is what they are trying to say. And in summary, in this unit, you have learned that the area of specialization for a teacher handling social studies in schools is capable of influencing his perception of what subject is. If, for instance, you graduated from agriculture, a BSc in agriculture, or you graduated from mass communication, or you graduated from, and then you had to teach social study, that your profession, your specialization, that your specialization will, it's going to contribute very much into how you will teach social studies. That's what I'm trying to say. So your specialization is a reflection of what you believe social studies to be, or how you will handle the teaching of social studies. However, those who present the subject as amalgamation of social sciences and humanities could be described as scholars who stop midway while trying to do justice to the task. Rather, social studies should be defined as a discipline that allows the learners to study people as they interact with one another, as they meet their needs for survival and comfort, develop their unique lifestyles, work out problems of group living as they reflect on the knowledge, beliefs, environmental characteristics, and tides of circumstances that have brought them to their present status and are likely to propel them into the future. Having done this, we are done with Unit 1. It's a very interesting part, what social study is not and what social study is. And the main idea is that whenever you want to attempt to to define social study, make sure your definition properly captures presenting man with solutions to problems that he will or he will likely confront in his environment. How to create solutions and how to get comfortable with his environment. If you have any questions, I'll entertain them now. If you have any questions, I will entertain them. If you don't have, we have passed our 45 minutes already, but that is okay. So we are done with Unit 1 of this material. That is awesome. We'll start from Unit 2 in the next class. So this brings us to the end of the class. The next class we have is mathematics. We'll start that by, let's say, 6:30 or 7. But what I will do is, I want to go through that material. If it's going to involve, because I know it's mathematics, if it's just basic concept, we'll do it on YouTube. If it's going to involve okay, your school wallet, right? No problem, just message me after the class. I'm available for that. So if it's going to involve calculation, like me teaching you math, then we will not do it on YouTube. I will send you a Zoom meeting link, because so that I'll be able to write on the whiteboard to teach the mathematics concept. So when I see the course material and decide which one will be best, I will surely get the link across. Thank you. Enjoy the short break for now.